Wir melden uns zurück von der Gamescom 2017. Diesmal wieder bei Ubisoft. Neben mir steht Sylvain, der Narrative Director von Transference. And the thing is, Transference is a psychological horror game, I would call it, or psychological thriller,
yeah,
more or
that.
less. Für alle, die es noch gar nicht kennen, noch gar nichts davon gehört haben, für mich eine Mischung aus Walking Simulator und Puzzle Game. But I have to say, I mentioned the word walking simulator, which is a term I hate because it's always used for games where you walk. Well, in every game you basically walk, but can you describe just how it feels to walk in this game?
Like you said, Transference is a psychological thriller, and it's a game that projects you in the digitally recreated minds of test case subjects. Doing so, you're navigating a dreamlike home filled with secrets to uncover, and you will interact with objects, solving puzzles, audio-visual puzzles, and maybe influence their fate. This is the whole of the game function.
So what we saw at the presentation, since no material of this game is available online, you're very, very basically Fort Knox of moving images, which is mean, just to say. We started off with a, let's say, diary entry of a scientist who told us about a project where you experienced the mindset that you described earlier. And then we start basically playing in a glitched matrix where the images freaks out and the sound sometimes freaks out, and obviously you freak out. And then you walk through a house, interacting with objects, changing the position of objects, solving puzzles. What is the point of this? Why do I basically take a book off a shelf, place it somewhere else? What do I do in the game world?
Yeah. You're actually manipulating the memories of the test case subject. So you're like altering his perception of the actual reality lived in. So doing so, you're creating new outcomes to his actual mental state, if you want. So the researcher you've seen at the beginning, Raymond Hayes, is a foremost researcher in brain data analysis. So his research is targeted on PTSD subject, test case subject, where it was interesting for him to go there because he will tackle the extreme of human emotions. So it's easier for him to upload this kind of test case subjects. So playing the game, the player plays as himself and is projected within the mind of that test case subject and reliving a mix in a non-linear way of his backstory or memories. And he tries to piece it up together by interacting with objects that are meaningful for his past or his memories. So like that you can modify his thoughts.
So is it basically modifying the past or reliving the experience to find out why this death occurred? Maybe it's a suicide death or is it a murder death? Yeah. Can you say anything about that?
That's it. So the demo is a different story than the final game. It's only to give you a feeling, a level of what will be the game. Actually, yes, we like people to approach it. There's different way to approach the story and different way to understand it. We give bits and pieces as information to keep some mystery going on. Obviously, you only had 15 minutes to go through it. If you had more time, you maybe uncover more and more as you roam through the house and get more information, and you will get a better sense of what happened in its history. So, yes, doing some of your manipulation alters the result at the ending.
To what point? I mean, what I was wondering is, what is the point of this research? Is it basically to analyze this certain death and prevent similar deaths in the future? Or is it just to find out the psychological backgrounds or to scientifically study how PTSD feels for patients to treat them in the future?
Exactly like you said at the end. The premise is that it's to find some kind of a treatment or a cure to manipulate their mind, so they apply the cure to these people affected with PTSD. This is the premise of the demo.
Personally, do you find research like this, if it were to occur in real life, would you find that interesting, scary, or very, very necessary in this day and age?
If it were to happen in real life, I think it would be quite an advance in science and really interesting that we could do that. And yes, I guess there would be several applications for this kind of treatment, or I guess intrusion into the people's mind that will give a lot of information on different, I could say, mental problems. Yeah, it would be interesting.
The thing is with PTSD, it's not a very common theme in video games. I remember it in like 2 instances. The most commonly known for me is Spec Ops: The Line, where you have this amazing scene where you drop the white phosphorus and then find out, holy shit, I didn't kill soldiers, I killed civilians. And to me, that kind of put me under PTSD for at least a few minutes.
Yeah.
And it's hard to imagine how it feels if you really have it. And
True.
since it's a topic that's not often tackled in video games,
Yeah.
why?
Like I mentioned, that it was a subject that made sense when it was a question of tackling the extreme of human emotions. It was a good source of inspiration for us to play with the fact that PTSD are often related to flashbacks, and since the audio plays a good role in the game, we use that as a good backdrop reason to play around with this, like flashback memories mixing up. And we actually had people who were victim of PTSD that said that we kind of nail it pretty well.
So, okay, let me get this straight. There is a person who really suffers from PTSD,
Yes.
playing a video game, playing a character, suffering from PTSD, experiencing what is basically their most inner fear in a digital environment, in addition to what they have in real life.
Yeah, they felt that we nailed it well. They felt that that's kind of experience that they had before.
How was their reaction? I mean, I have my colleague who's behind the camera and the editing table is going like, what the? Ah! Yeah. A few times during the demo, how did they react? Was it like more relaxed because they were kind of used to it, or was it more intense, or just the same?
I don't have this information because I was not present. It's someone who told me this information from the office. I was not present during this test.
Okay. Since it's a psychological thriller where you walk around some place finding out things in first-person view, it's of course perfect for virtual reality.
Yes.
And you do support VR. Which types and fabrics of VR do you use?
All the VR support, PlayStation VR, HTC Vive, Oculus Rift, and also it's available on non-VR platform, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC.
And that is very interesting to me because there are many VR games, many non-VR games, obviously. How do you create an experience that is both interesting when you use VR and when you don't use VR?
The gameplay aspect of it is easily transferable. Obviously, everything is developed for VR primarily. So the experience is more immersive through VR, but the game is still an excellent experience as you play on standard platform. So we do develop for VR first, but it's easily transferable.
The thing is, you are the narrative director of the game. So I can put my hat to, writing a book, writing a movie, which is a very linear experience. But having to tell a story in a non-linear way, how do you approach this? How do you make sure that players end up with the, let's call it, right information or all the information that they need?
Good question. We're using all the tools available for us, attracting player with sound, visual enticer. Actually, sound is a big part of it because it can be played anywhere, attract the player from anywhere, and also the narrative context that we have permits us to pull in new information as we go, like if it's voices from the background, voices coming from other rooms. We're trying always to keep also the suspension of disbelief by keeping character as real as we can by playing with lighting, keeping them in the shadows, making the player feel that he's really somewhere where he's immersed in the real world somewhere else. And we know a bit the progression. There's always a gameplay structure under it, so we know the progression of the player within the game itself. So it's easier to know when we're going to see them more information about the story as he progresses. And what's cool about the game is that the puzzles themselves are narratively driven. They're not just side puzzles. They're really part of the narrative itself. So each object you manipulate are meaningful for the characters.
And can you tell us what kind of play time we can expect from the game? How long is the experience? And are there multiple outcomes, endings that we can unlock?
Yes, we cannot really put a number yet because the game is still in development. The game is based on a 3-arc storyline. So we're really, with the collaboration of Spectre Vision, we're really trying to bridge movies and games. So doing so, it's really, like I said, based on a 3-arc structure. So the game should be a complete experience, gameplay and narratively, for the player to explore or experience.
And one last thing, when can we expect the release?
In spring 2018.
Spring 2018. So Sylvain, thanks a lot for talking to us.
No
thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you guys soon.
Rico, wie geht's?
Alter Schwede. Ist das intensiv, das Game? Wow. Also du fühlst dich wirklich in einer realen Welt, will ich fast behaupten. Und du versuchst halt da wirklich alles irgendwie zu kontrollieren und herauszufinden, wo man sich irgendwie zurechtfinden kann. Geil. Ich kann es nur sagen, es ist geil. Cooles Game auf jeden Fall. Tschüss.